All right, folks, we are recording. So, very warm welcome to everyone to the k0rdent community meeting. We were supposed to organize this on every third Thursday of the month, but then we were not able to organize a lot of things because we wanted a community in place. And in the last 6 months since k0rdent went GA, we have received a lot of community support. Whichever events I have attended, KubeCons, KCDs, a lot of people have talked about k0rdent or want to know what k0rdent is all about. And I'm glad to see a lot of folks joining in this call. I believe folks are not just from the primary sponsor company Mirantis, but there are a lot of external community folks who are joining in, and there are a lot of exciting things that will happen. This is the community kickoff call, of course. But yeah, from now on, we'll be organizing these community meetings on every fourth Thursday of the month. Initially, we are doing it for 30 minutes, but hopefully we can expand these calls to a 1 hour duration. For today's call, I tried to create a rough agenda. We have already created our community meeting notes, which are available as a Google Doc. I'll be sharing it. I believe I've shared it already in the community Slack, but I'll be sharing it here in the chat as well at large, and people who are part of the call can add themselves as attendees. And today we have a rough agenda. These community meetings obviously are meant to discuss community updates, the latest releases. Right now we are at k0rdent 1.1 for the k0rdent cluster manager and the FinOps and observability side. But we'll discuss different subcomponents, the technical and non-technical contributions to k0rdent, user stories of k0rdent. I believe there's some usage that we have already seen in the community. People are asking questions. So I believe in the upcoming calls, we'll start to see more user stories coming up. And then obviously we'll also talk about the new releases, technical and non-technical contributions, good first issues. So that is going to be the idea behind these community calls. And right now I created a very rough agenda. So I would like to quickly, for everyone to introduce themselves, a quick introduction to all members on the call. I believe we have around 25 to 30 folks on the call. So I would request everyone to introduce themselves on chat. Just write down your name, which company you belong to, and what exactly you're working on. If you're contributing to k0rdent, on what capacity have you contributed to k0rdent? So I would love everyone to just introduce themselves on chat. We can quickly see through it. And then we have Dina with us, who's been one of the primary contributors and part of the core working group when k0rdent was created. So I would just like Dina to introduce k0rdent to us, give us a recap on what k0rdent has been, what it's trying to solve for the community, and the latest version 1.1. But yeah, I would love everyone to introduce themselves. I'll go through the introductions, and meanwhile, I would allow Dina to just quickly introduce k0rdent to all of us.
Okay, I'm not very prepared for this conversation, but yeah, let's do that. So my name is Dina. I'm working at Mirantis, and I'm a director of engineering here, and the whole k0rdent team reports to me. So yeah, about what is k0rdent? Like the easiest, and the shortest way to think about k0rdent is that that's a project that is a very complex project that provides a way to manage distributed Kubernetes infrastructure at scale. So you can think of k0rdent as super control plane project that ensures the consistent provisioning of Kubernetes clusters, lifecycle management of Kubernetes clusters, as well as services on top of them. That is going to be the shortest answer to that question, but I believe that pretty much everybody on the call is aware about that or tried it. So that's just for the people who potentially are not on this call today. If we talk about in a bit more details, then k0rdent is consisting of 3 major components that provide the experience of managing this whole infrastructure at scale. The first one is k0rdent cluster management component, which is based on upstream copy provider capabilities, and includes cluster API controllers and the workflow we made the top of them. And we also use Cosmotron as a part of our cluster management capabilities, which extends copy with additional functionality, including like control plane and worker node bootstrap providers, additional capabilities like hosted control plane, and the like remote machine providers, for example. So the second major component is going to be a state management component, which is responsible for lifecycle management, like deploying, scaling, updating, upgrading, drift detection of services and application on top of our managed clusters. So right now we base the whole state management and services and Kubernetes advanced management capabilities on top of upstream open source Sveltes project. But what we're doing right now is actually making k0rdent provider agnostic in terms of like state management provider capabilities. So if in the future somebody would love to contribute and implement, for example, like Argo CD or Flux or stuff like that, they will be more than welcome to do so. And the third component that kind of pillars the k0rdent experience is, of course, monitoring, observability, and FinOps. So we call it like k0rdent observability and FinOps, which resides in a separate repository, kickoff repository, under k0rdent GitHub organization, and it provides observability and FinOps capabilities for the managed clusters, including the ability to monitor mothership cluster where we deploy all of the control plane components. So it's basically around centralized metrics, logging, as well as cost management capabilities. And for cost management capabilities, we rely on OpenCost as the open source project. So what else to mention? In kickoff in particular, the important note to mention will be that it is using OpenTelemetry based architecture and OpenTelemetry components. So pretty much everything that produces metrics or logs in OpenTelemetry format will be has the possibility to be consumed by kickoff and being presented as part of the monitoring solution on the mentioned clusters. Yeah, that's maybe the short answer to what is k0rdent. Prithvi, do you want to provide anything else here?
No, thank you so much, Dina. I believe we have a good introduction to k0rdent to set some scope. Maybe we will talk more about k0rdent and have more slides, or talk more about releases. Just one more thing, Dina, if you could just talk about the latest release 1.1, what we have improved or what's there for the community, or how we have improved over the last 3 months with the releases. That will be great. And then we can move on to the next topic, talking about the community charter.
Sure. Like if talking about like our upstream and open source releases in general, what we try to do is to have releases every month, and rough target date is usually end of the month. Sometimes it's just the last day of the month, but if it's like Friday or Saturday, we try to avoid it. So pretty much any work day in the end of the month, like between Monday and Thursday, is going to be most probably our target date for the open source releases in two main repositories, KCM. KCM contains the cluster management component and state management component, and kickoff as our observability and FinOps repository. So the last release that happened like in the end of June was marked as 1.10 release, and if not like what should I mention there? So it contained the number of fixes. We had quite a lot of fixes being landed in both of the repositories that I mentioned. From feature standpoint, the one that I maybe want to highlight the most is that ability to deploy k0rdent from the private registry with custom CA support, we've seen quite a lot of requests to do that, and it was like number of changes that were introduced in both KCM and repositories to make it like possible. So there are a number of like smaller features in KCM repo. Important note to mention, like in 1.0.0 release that was not previous, but like the one before previous release, we switched from alpha to beta API versions. And in previous 1.1.0 release, we actually deprecated, disabled the alpha API versioning. So right now, the only available API version, it will be V1 beta 1 in k0rdent. And that basically means that if you have older KCM version deployed somewhere, like before 1.0.0, you have to go your upgrade path through 1.0.0 and then to latest 1.1.0 to actually have no issues with your API versioning. So that's pretty much it. For kickoff 1.1.0 release, again, changes related to private registries with custom CA. There were like several of them. And what else to mention? Several new metrics, several new dashboards. I don't know, like if we have somebody from off team on a call, we can potentially poke these guys. Let me see.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, Dennis, I see you. Can you just quickly talk through what we had like in 1.1.0 kickoff, just like 2 minutes overview?
Oh, you mean just the new features released specifically in the latest release, right?
Correct.
Okay, I guess let me check the release notes. So we had switched as the main feature to the upstream Prometheus rules, and this is a really big thing. But actually, well, maybe if you could give me a moment, I could quickly prepare for this and answer it because it's hard to like quickly do this at the moment. Okay, I'd better just write it. Send the link to the chat. It will be better. Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead, because I remember there were a number of new metrics and alerts and dashboards, but just like I cannot like get them out of my head very quickly. So maybe just linking to the release notes will be a good idea. So please go ahead. As I mentioned before, like we try to release every end of month, and obviously as it is July 24th, like end of month is behind the corner. So we're gonna have our next release being cut next week. We targeted next Thursday, 1 week from now exactly, to have 1.2.0 releases in KCM and kickoff repositories. So the first release candidates for that will be cut tomorrow. Again, number of fixes, like we had quite a lot of like bugs really to get into both of the repos. Maybe one important highlight for people who were asking about that, I think in the channel, in our CNCF channel some time ago. So as you guys know, out of the supported providers list right now in KCM, we have like OpenStack, vSphere, Azure, like AWS, but in OpenStack in particular, we were supporting only we had only standalone clusters cluster templates example in the repository. Starting with next release, that's going to be next Thursday, we're going to have the hosted OpenStack template as well that will allow to use the hosted control plane feature of Cosmotron on the OpenStack provider as well, because previously it was missing, and there was, and still is, by the way, the upstream couple issue that prevented us from doing that before, but we were able to find like the working version, the working template version that you can use. In the meanwhile, we are fixing the upstream couple bug for full support. So yeah, that is maybe like a heads up for you guys. Okay. Prithvi, is it enough? Anything else?
No, no, absolutely, Dina. Thank you so much. I think this is a good start, and thank you for giving us a recap of what we have been doing. I believe in the upcoming community calls, we did not have such a long recap, but we can focus on the latest release that is perhaps due at the end of this month. And then we need not introduce Cordant in every other call. This was just to introduce it to the community as is the kickoff call, but we'll focus more on talking about what's happening in the community, what are the questions. I see a lot of folks who have joined from not just Mirantis, but organizations like Capgemini. There's Darren, again, hi Darren. Jared, who's joined us from CloudFight. We have Maruti, who's working at Persistent Systems. It's a very popular company in India. So glad to know that our community is building. I'll quickly share my screen once again. So we'll talk about the community charter a little, and we'll also talk about how we are trying to move ahead with the community calls. Obviously, this is the kickoff call. So what we'll try to do is obviously have these calls on the 4th Thursday of the month. Which is going to be there for sure. But we'll also try to bring in contributor calls and maintainer calls moving ahead, which is part of our governance document. So right now we are just hosting community calls to understand our community, what kind of users we have, are people who are using Cordent interested in coming back and sharing their stories, are people who are using Cordent interested in contributing to the project. So right now we are yet to talk about contributions, but the idea behind these community calls are to understand the community better and get the community involved. It is Cordent is not, as you know, it's an open source project. We are in the CNCF ecosystem as well. Right now, we are not a CNCF project. The plans on that can be discussed with the community, and feedback can be taken before even looking at that direction. But right now we are just hosting these community calls, but moving ahead, we want to host contributor calls and maintainer calls separately. And if I have to talk about contributing to Cordent, folks who have joined in this call and have still not started contributing to Cordent, I would request you to check out the contributing guidelines, how to get started with your contributions. We'll also be starting off with some good first issues that we can create with the community post this community kickoff. There's some items that we need to cover as part of the roadmap. We don't have a formal roadmap right now. It has to be a community-driven roadmap. So what I'll be doing post this call is create a GitHub discussion where we will add items that can be added to the Cordent community roadmap, and I'll open it to the community so that we can await what kind of items that need to be added to Cordent, what are the issues that the community is facing currently, or moving ahead, say in the next 6 months, what all needs to be added to the roadmap, say for a major release, which could be Cordent 2.0. And then we also need to formally add maintainers and reviewers. I know we have co-founders and core contributors to the project. So Dennis is a core contributing to the KOF repo, folks like Artem who are contributing to the KCM repo, but we need to add these maintainers to the main Cordent repo. And we'll be doing that before the next community call itself. So those who are not part of the Cordent community, just letting you know that the Cordent community is up on the CNCF Slack. And if you can scan this QR and just join the Cordent community, that's where the open source conversations will be happening. And that is where we'll be sharing all the community notes, everything that is happening around the community. So a quick community update right now. We just started off with our community notes on Google Doc. So we'll be, obviously we are using Gemini to take the notes, and we'll be adding that to the Google Doc itself. But moving ahead, we plan to see if Google Docs is fit for it, or do we want to move to HackMD? So that will also be part of the discussion. So I'll just allow community folks to comment on that as well. So before I move ahead to the upcoming community goals and opening the floor for some discussion, because we have 8 minutes on the calendar, I would like to share that we have Cordant tutorials already up on our YouTube channel. So what we are trying to do as a community is work with different community folks to talk about different aspects of Cordant, what Cordant is all about, demoing the cluster manager, the state manager, the observability and FinOps side of things, the what platform engineering is. So we'll be talking a lot about platform engineering, Cordant as a tool. Cordant tutorials are meant to serve the community. In case you are starting off with Cordant or you need to get chunk of something, you can tune to it. And then beyond that, we also have a lot of community talks already available in this community. You just have to search Cordant. And I believe on YouTube, you'll see a lot of talks delivered by folks who are involved with Cordant, including me at different virtual events or community events. But this Cordant tutorials, again, letting everyone know, it's open to the community. Anyone can come and contribute to it. Say, folks who are just starting to use Cordant, you have a user story. Let's discuss this at the community call and convert it to a Cordant tutorial or a Cordant video user story and share it from the Cordant channel. So that's the idea behind the Cordant YouTube channel and Cordant tutorials. Right now, we have around 3 or 4 tutorials out there, but in the upcoming weeks, you'll see more tutorials added to the playlist. Last up, these are some upcoming community goals I want to share personally as a community moderator that I have noticed and that will help drive our Cordant community. We need to host separate contributor calls, as I said. We need to have a release cadence. Dina spoke about it being the last of the month, but maybe fixing a date that it could be the last Friday of the month or last Thursday of the month. So I think we had something in the governance, but we need to review it and start with the release cadence that can be implemented for the open source side of things. We need to obviously focus. This is an open source project. It is not a vendor driven project. Obviously, Mirantis, as you know, has been a primary sponsor or a co-creator to this project. But again, folks who are interested to be maintainers from other organizations, there's a maintainer path on how you can become a maintainer. I'll share the governance in chat while we have our open floor. And then we need to nominate maintainers for each sub-project. That will happen through a governance process. It won't be ad hoc, but rather all the maintainers are contributing to, say, the cluster manager or the state manager or even the Cordant website. They'll be added as Cordant docs. They'll be added as maintainers in the upcoming weeks, so that before the next call, we'll have a maintainer nomination in place, and then we can add them to the GitHub itself. We are also hopeful that the current maintainers or the co-creators will help create some good first issues for different sub-repos so that the external community members can participate, or we can move forward into, say, mentorship programs as well. And then we'll shortly have a community mailing list where I'll share the recordings and everything around Cordant, and obviously growing the Cordant tutorials. So that is what I had from a community perspective on how we want to drive this community or what we want to do. Right now, I will stop sharing my screen, and we have around 5 minutes on the clock. So I would love to open the floor for some questions. If there are any questions from folks who are already using Cordant, or folks who have joined the call and are trying to support Cordant or are contributing to Cordant, please let me know, what do you think about the community initiative and how you would like to contribute. So I'm just opening the floor for some discussions. Anyone who wants to speak can maybe raise their hand and unmute themselves and talk.
Hey, hi, Prithvi, Maruti. I'm audible.
Hey, Maruti, yes, you're audible.
So, yeah, I just wanted to know the quadrant is just central Kubernetes cluster management across the any region, any platform like AWS, Azure, and anything. So, this is my understanding. Is it right or?
Would someone like to take that up? Or should I answer that? All right, Maruti. So, k0rdent, as you know, I mean, k0rdent, it's not just a centralized cluster manager, but it's a tool to help you manage your multi-cloud, multi-cluster environment. So, if you're trying to say build a platform on Kubernetes, or there are other environments, say your VMs or your bare metal environments, so you can use k0rdent as a central source of truth or a central control plane to manage your different environments. And k0rdent is obviously Kubernetes native. So basically, we are trying to say that Kubernetes is the common control plane or the central layer which you can use to manage all your different environments.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right, folks. Do we have any other questions or suggestions? Darren, I believe you have been testing k0rdent before this. You were testing cluster API, kubectl, and swelltoss differently. Would you like to share some thoughts on how you are using k0rdent, or what's the journey been until now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, Darren. Yes, Darren, absolutely.
Yeah, so like I'm in the chat, I'm particularly interested in management of clusters at scale, and particularly hosted control plane. So initially, I started looking at cluster API and swelltoss and also kubectl independently. So I was installing cluster API on a management cluster, and then installing swelltoss on the management cluster, and then using cluster API to deploy workload clusters, and then installing kubectl in a federated configuration. So the management cluster would be my primary kubectl host, and then kubectl would be installed on my subsequent workload clusters in agent mode. And that's when I stumbled across k0rdent. I think some of your guys are asking various questions on the swelltoss channel, and so I've kind of switched now. So rather than installing those things independently, I've now just installed k0rdent, because k0rdent comes with obviously cluster API. It comes with swelltoss under the hood, and also uses Flux, which is the other tool I was installing on the clusters. And it's been fairly smooth. I've raised a couple of questions and issues, which on the Slack channel, and it's been really responsive in terms of fixing those issues. So for me, it looks like a really nice wrapper around those tools that I just mentioned, with obviously the enhancements of being able to deploy it. So in particular, the way I deploy it is I use Cilium. So I've been deploying k0rdent with pod identity on AWS in the management cluster with crossplane installed, configuring the IAM roles, various other bits, crossplane, and then using k0rdent to deploy a cluster, workload cluster with CAPI with no CNI, and then using the service element of the cluster deployment to automatically deploy Cilium Enterprise on the workload clusters. And that's worked pretty well. Actually, I was just doing it before this call. So the next stage is really just to tie in kubectl, which I've done most of that already, actually. So that kubectl is deployed on both the management cluster and also the workload cluster, but in different modes. So the workload cluster will get deployed as an agent, federated agent for kubectl, and then obviously my management cluster will have the primary kubectl UI installed. So yeah, it's been pretty smooth. So I think the next thing for me really is I need to get a better understanding of how you create templates, cluster templates, provider templates. So I'm interested in that. and also, well, using that KGST, and also the catalog, because obviously there was some change, I think, between the early days of k0rdent and how it is now, how we use the catalog. So those are the things I'm particularly interested in. So I don't want to talk too much, but yeah, so that's what I've been doing.
Thank you so much, Darren. Appreciate you sharing this story with the community, and I hope in the upcoming community calls we see you sharing more stories and how you've been able to use k0rdent, or how you were able to deploy kickoff, and what's the complete story with k0rdent. But appreciate you sharing this story. We are just in time, so I wouldn't take more time from the community folks. I'll take some internal feedback as well from everyone who has joined the call, and I would love you to share the feedback on the channel itself. Keep asking your questions in the k0rdent community channel. From now on, if folks don't know, we'll discuss all the OSS community stuff in the k0rdent community channel, the issues, your contributions, or any questions asked. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining in, and I'll share the community notes post this call, as well as the recording will be up on the YouTube channel. But in the next call, perhaps we'll discuss more on the next release, the catalog, and more user stories. So stay tuned for that, and I'll see you next fourth Thursday of the month of August. Thanks everyone. Take care. Bye.
Good. Thank you, guys.